was the leader of the band, and they called him the Muddy Mississippi Band. My girl was Ruby Coulter.
In today's video, I'm going to be making one of my absolute favorite desserts, Mississippi Mud Pie. If you're a chocolate lover, this is the dessert for you. It's got an Oreo cookie crust, it's got a layer of chocolate brownies, it's got a layer of chocolate mousse, it's got dark chocolate, it's got milk chocolate, it's got everything. So we're going to go ahead and hop into the kitchen. I think you're really going to love this one. To begin this recipe, we're going to make an Oreo crust for our pie. So I've got 5.5 ounces of broken up Oreo pieces here, and I'm going to put 4 tablespoons of melted butter in there. And in the food processor, we're just going to grind this up until we get the texture of coarse sand. I've put the buttered Oreo crumbs in a 9-inch pie pan, and now I'm just going to use my Food and Wine Festival glass here to pat this down. And you want to pack this pretty tight and get this all along the bottom in an even layer as well as up the sides. The crust has been applied all the way around, and now I've preheated the oven to 325 degrees, and we're going to pre-bake this shell for 15 minutes. At this point, we're ready to make the brownie layer of our Mississippi mud pie. So we're going to take 4 ounces of bittersweet chocolate, and then 3 tablespoons of butter, 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and 1.5 tablespoons of Dutch processed cocoa powder. And in a microwave safe bowl, we're going to microwave them for about 1.5 minutes, and about every 30 seconds or so, you're going to open the microwave and whisk this together until we get a nice smooth liquid consistency. In a separate large mixing bowl, we're going to put 2/3 of a cup of dark brown sugar, as well as 2 room temperature eggs, a little pinch, about 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and about 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Probably more than 2 teaspoons, but if you watch this channel, you know I don't measure vanilla. And then we're just going to give that a quick whisk together. Make sure all those sugar bits get broken up. If there's any clumps that remain together. This is what your chocolate mixture should look like. Nice and creamy. So now we're going to go ahead and add that in as well. And I'm using a spatula to make sure I get as much of it in there as I can, and very little of it is wasted. And now we're just going to whisk that together. Look at that nice velvety looking mixture. And then the last thing we're going to do is add 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. And then once again, whisk all of this together until you get a smooth brownie batter. I've just taken the pie shell out of the oven, and with the pie shell still hot, we're going to go ahead and add the brownie filling in here. And then we're going to return it to the oven and bake it for another 15 minutes until the brownie layer gets nice and set and there's no liquid parts of the cake remaining. I just took this pie out of the oven. You can probably still see it bubbling just a little bit. So we've got 2 of our layers done. We've got 2 more to go. At this point, we're going to let this cool on a rack for about an hour to get it back to room temperature. And then we're going to put it in the refrigerator and let it chill to get cold for about another hour. Now we're going to make the crushed Oreo topping layer. So we're going to get a plastic bag and get 2 ounces of Oreos or any other sort of chocolate wafer cookie that you like. And we're going to get that in there, and now we're going to try to press out as much of that air as possible. Seal that bag. And then we're just going to take a rolling pin and roll it over the top of these cookies until we get some roughly crushed cookie pieces. To the crushed cookie crumbs, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of confectioner's sugar, as well as a tablespoon of cocoa powder, just a pinch of salt, And then 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And then we're just going to mix all of that up until it gets nice and thoroughly combined. On a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, we're just going to take our cookie crumbles now and kind of just distribute them evenly all over the sheet. And then we're going to bake this at 350 for about 10 minutes until these cookie crumbs get nice and fragrant. And then set them aside, and these will be the final garnish, the 4th layer of our Mississippi mud pie. The last layer is going to be a milk chocolate mousse. So as with the bittersweet chocolate, we're going to put 6 ounces of milk chocolate in a microwave safe bowl, and we're going to just microwave it in increments of 30 seconds, stirring it after each one until we get a nice liquid consistency. You can see the melted milk chocolate there in the upper right, and we're going to let that cool down a little bit before we use it again. But now I've got 3 tablespoons of heavy cream that I've warmed up to just above room temperature, and we're going to add a tablespoon of cocoa powder to that and just mix all of that until it gets thoroughly incorporated and there's no dry crumbs left over. At a stand mixer fitted with the whisk attachment, we're going to add our cocoa cream, as well as 3/4 of a cup of chilled heavy cream, 2 tablespoons of confectioner's sugar, and just a pinch of salt. Very light on the salt. And then we're just going to whip this on high until we get a nice smooth chocolate whipped cream. Back at the cooling milk chocolate, we're going to take just a bit of this cocoa whipped cream, about 1/3 of it, and we're just going to slightly fold it in with that chocolate to get it, it sort of serves as a pre-mix so that it will not harden and fail to incorporate in with the rest of the whipped cream. Once no streaks remain in your mixture, you can go ahead and add that back into the rest of the whipped cocoa cream. And once again, we're just going to fold all that together until no streaks remain. I've taken out the chilled first 2 layers, and now we're ready for our final assembly. So we're going to begin by just filling in that wonderful chocolate mousse over the top. And we're just going to use our spatula to get that nice and evenly distributed across the entire crust. Next up, we're going to gently add our crumbled cookie topping layer. And again, trying to get that evenly distributed across the entire top of the pie. All done distributing the top layer. It's kind of funny, this does actually, as I was making it, I'm like, man, this really does look like the Mississippi River. If you've ever seen the southern portion of it in Mississippi or Louisiana, it's a pretty muddy river towards the Delta. So, yeah, this is really cool in a lot of different ways, and if you love chocolate, it's an amazing recipe. What we're going to do now is put this in the refrigerator. You want this to chill for at least 3 hours before trying to cut a piece. And don't worry, I'm still going to cut a piece and show you guys what all those layers look like. This pie is completely chilled, and now we're going to try to cut a slice, and let's see how this came out. Oh man, I can already tell this texture is just great. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at those beautiful layers there. All right, let's get this onto a plate. Yeah, this is just some fantastic layering here. You can see we've got that brownie layer, that cookie layer, and then that beautiful chocolate mousse on top of that. So this recipe was designed to look like the muddy sediment of the Mississippi River, And it really does. It really evokes that sort of feeling. At least it does in me as someone who has lived on the southern Mississippi for a decent portion of my life. So check out the Cook's Country Cookbook if you want some of these local, regional American recipes. It's such a big, thick book with so many good recipes. Everyone I've made has been really good so far. And yeah, anytime I look up, man, hey, remember this from when I lived here? Generally speaking, this book has it. So highly recommend you pick that one up. Check out some of my other recipes where I cook from that book, and I'll see you guys at the next one.